state.
You're listening to Morning Report. And as he said to party faithful on Saturday night, if you told the Greens leader James Shaw a month ago that he'd be happy seeing his party get little more than half of their 2014 election tally, he wouldn't have believed you. But after the furore over his former co-leader Matiria Touré's admission of benefit fraud and the ensuing plunge in support, he claimed to be happy with 5.9%. With his party in danger of being thrown out of Parliament for failing to reach that 5% threshold, perhaps relief is a better word than happiness. James Shaw's with us now. Good morning. Is relief the right word?
Well, it is a little hard to distinguish from happiness at this point. I mean, like I said, I think there were two reasons why I was happy about the result. One of which is, of course, being back into Parliament after what was an incredibly difficult campaign, and I am really proud of the performance of our caucus and our candidates and our volunteers that we did that. And the other, actually, is that a majority of New Zealanders voted for the opposition. And to me, that is the mood for change.
OK, so where are the coalition talks sitting at?
Well, we haven't started. I had a call with Jacinda Ardern yesterday. We talked about the process mostly, but obviously, Mr. Peters has decided that he wants to wait until the specials are counted. So it is going to take a bit of time. OK,
now on the specials, you may gain an extra seat or two on the left bloc side of things. So I guess, is that something that you are also happy to wait for, because perhaps it strengthens your hand?
Well, as I understand it, Mr. Peters is a bit of a traditionalist and would prefer to negotiate with, the largest party first, or the largest bloc first. If National do lose one or two seats and they do come over to our side of the ledger with both us and with Labour, then that will put us to within one or two seats of National's number of MPs. And so I think he would be more comfortable with that.
OK, you said you've been speaking with Jacinda Ardern about the process of the coalition talks. How exactly would that continue? Would it be the three of you, or the three parties essentially in one room together, or would it be Labour discussing things separately with you and with New Zealand First?
I would anticipate that at least at first Labour will have one-to-one discussions and at some point obviously we're going to need to get into a room together because we intend to govern together.
OK, at this stage then, have you been offered any particular position? Should there be a coalition? Have you asked for any?
No, far too early. I mean, all we've really discussed is the process. We haven't discussed content and don't anticipate doing that for a little while.
OK, so do you have a sense at all of when these talks potentially could start with you and Labour?
I would anticipate this week. OK,
so that's going to happen before any special votes come in. Will Labour be talking to you first, or will they be talking to New Zealand First?
I can't. I honestly couldn't speculate.
OK. Yeah. As for what this could mean, is it possible that you could yet get shut out of government, that Labour and New Zealand First do a deal that sees you sitting on the crossbenches?
Well, I mean, one of the things we all want, and I think Mr. Peters has indicated this as well, is a stable and responsible government that can go the distance. And so the most stable form of government is one where we are all working together on a common program. And so that is what we are working on. That's my intention.
There's not great relations necessarily between the Greens and New Zealand First, though, are there? So isn't that a bit of a problem?
Well, we've obviously got our differences, but we also have a lot of areas in common as well. And I named some of those on Saturday night. I think that after an election is a time when, for the good of the country and the national interest, you have to say, let's put our differences to one side and work on what's common rather than what distinguishes us.
But for the good of the country, would you strike a deal that involved you being outside of government itself?
Well, look, I'm not going to speculate on the outcome of the talks. My goal is to be at the heart of the next government. I've always said that. And I do believe, and we've learned our lessons over the last 20 years of MMP, that for the Greens to advance our policy agenda, which is, of course, why we're here, that we need to be in government and in cabinet.
That's your goal? But is that reality? I mean, are you going to have to suck up that Winston might just say, I'll do a deal with you, Jacinda Ardern, but I'm not having James Shaw as part of this?
Well, Mr. Peters has two options, obviously, one of which is to go with us and the Parties for Change. The other is to go with National and with the status quo. And I don't think that he would want to opt for the less stable option. I think he would want to opt for the more stable option.
What is the less stable option, though?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Is two less stable than three?
Well, it's a minority government, right? So if you've got a minority government, then where he has to get us over the line on every single vote. If we were essentially sitting on the cross benches.
But he could just negotiate with one party and have done with it, and that would be national, and you'd all be locked out.
Well, that is how the cookie crumbles. That's up to him.
Okay. As for who is going to be on your negotiating team, is that going to be you in the room?
I will be in the room, yes.
Who else?
I'm sorry, I can't get into the precise shape of that, but we'll have some senior members of the party and senior staff.
Why won't you be able to get into that? Why can't you tell us?
Well, I don't want to bring members of staff into this conversation and into public. I mean, that's the politicians were all, obviously in public and so on, and so, I want to answer for myself, but I just,
Other MPs, though?
Yep.
Okay, which other MPs?
Yep. We'll have Eugenie Sage, who's our Chief of Staff.
Okay.
Our Chief Whip.
Okay, what about lawyers? Is this something that you're going to need the lawyers going over to and have them in the room?
Look, like I said, I'm not going to get into that. We do have the capacity to bring in advisors.
I'm not asking you to name a lawyer. I'm just asking you to confirm whether lawyers will be there or not.
We may.
Okay. What do you think is your greatest lesson from the campaign? You said you learned lessons. What lessons?
Well, actually, what we're going to do now is we will conduct a full review of the campaign. We do this after every campaign, of course, but this one has a particular sort of light on it. And so I'm going to be looking for, what are the lessons learned from this? I mean, I have to say, I think the main thing is that when we focus on our core message, and we spend our time talking about the things that are important to people about the future of the country and the future of the planet, that's when we get the best response. And so, we've just got to maintain that level of discipline and that focus. And
in terms of what you might get over the line in coalition negotiations, what comes first? Is it the environment or is it social justice?
Well, I've said this before, we don't see those things as distinguishable from each other. And
but if you have to choose, and you may have to.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted to change the government, because I think that the National Party sees it that way, as sort of this kind of binary, and one thing has to win and one thing has to lose. But actually, I don't see it that way. That actually the solutions are ultimately a form of economics that enables you to have the kind of environmental and social outcomes that you want.
Thank you very much for your time, James Shaw. That's the leader of the Green Party. It's 12 minutes to 8.
And Labour will also be hoping to negotiate a deal with the Greens in New Zealand first. I've got Phil Twyford with me now in the Auckland studio, who's going to be playing a role in these negotiations. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Guyan.
Firstly, why are you fronting the media this morning and not Jacinda Ardern? Is there a strategy there, or
No, not particularly. It's the aftermath of the campaign, and I've been speaking for the party on the campaign, so no particular reason.
Is she taking a little bit of a back seat for a day or so, or what's the deal there?
No, not really. I mean, we Jacinda did some media yesterday and commented pretty extensively on the outcome of the elections. So yeah.
Do you have a realistic chance of leading the next government?
Yes. So we believe we can do a deal with the Greens and New Zealand First to stitch together a progressive and stable government. And that's what we're going to try and do over the next few weeks.
And you use the word stitch. It's a more complex weave, your one, isn't it? You got three different strands.
We've got three parties that we would need to put together a government. The National Party would have two. So that's a difference. But look, we came out of Saturday night feeling pretty buoyant about the result. A majority of New Zealanders voted for parties that were campaigning for change, campaigning against the government.
Well, that's arguable. I mean, that's your line. But that's arguable, isn't it? I mean, 7.5% of them voted for a party led by a guy who's been in Parliament 40 years. Some people might characterise that as a mood for change. Others may not.
What did he have on his billboards?
Well,
had enough?
Well,
that's a pretty clear indication. And if you listen to what Winston Peters was saying throughout the campaign, he was clearly campaigning for change. He was fiercely critical of the government's policy.
But in that analysis, a New Zealand First National government is a change of government. It's a different government. So
technically,
they're all semantics, right? And everyone's going to spin it their own way. When we talk about the numbers, your three weave for your stitched together government gets you to 61. Now, I know that's enough to get you over the line, but what sort of government is it that could fall on a by-election, for example? Is it enough?
So there were 384,000 special
I know,
votes.
and that's what I'll come to. I'm asking now, is 61 enough for you?
Yes, it is, with the prospect of 384,000 special votes. That could shift up to two seats from the centre-right to the centre-left.
And we'll talk about that. But
that's the critical thing, Guyon. That's the critical thing.
So your answer really tells me quite a lot, because you're really saying 61 isn't enough, and I'd want one or two more, right?
Well, you always want more, right?
Yeah, but it's not it's a bit fragile, eh?
No, I don't think so. Look, I think that when you look at the policy alignment between the three potential members of a centre-left coalition, and you look at the relationships between the three, I think that there's a pretty good prospect that we could put together a government. And that's exactly what we're going to do. You know, there's been a lot of, I think, misinformed talk, kind of first past the post, winner takes all talk about the party with the greatest number of votes winning.
Do you believe that there is an expectation from the public that the largest party will lead the government?
No, look, I think...
Well, you are in disagreement with your leader then, because she said exactly that to me in this building about 10 days ago.
Look, this is the 8th MMP election. I think that the system has matured. We have seen a great variety of governments with different arrangements, minority, majority, confidence and supply arrangements and so on. There's only one rule under MMP. It's the leader who can command a majority in the House. That's all it comes down to.
Okay, well, it's interesting, though, that your own leader said that she believed that there was an expectation from the public.
Well, I think there's
Did you hear her say that?
There's a hangover.
Do you remember her say that?
There's a hangover from first past the post. There are clearly some people who think that.
Well, one of them's your leader.
Well, she was making an observation. It wasn't her personal opinion that should be the case. She was observing that there are some people who think that, and that's true. But there are others who have another view. This is MMP. The only winner of an MMP election is the leader who can put together a majority in the House and form a government. And actually, the current caretaker Prime Minister, I think, has somewhat overreached. You would think by the sound of what Billingham has been saying in recent days that they've got this commanding moral mandate to form a government. That's not how it works.
I put it to you that if you'd got 46%, you'd be saying that you had a moral mandate. And I think your answer tells me the truth on that.
Well, look, it's there's no question that was a good result for Bill English. And give him credit for that.
And you guys, you fell short, didn't you?
Well, we would like to have won a few more seats in the House, but look at it this way. We made, under Jacinda Ardern's leadership, an extraordinary comeback. Labor is back in the game. We've got 13 new, talented, energetic MPs coming in. We made a clean sweep of the Māori seats. Jacinda Ardern galvanised the centre-left.
Okay, and you talk about the Māori seats, and yesterday, in an interview with Patrick Gower on The Nation, you were ready to ditch them.
No, not at all.
You did. You said it was on the table that you could go ahead with this referenda with New Zealand First about abolishing the Māori seats.
No,
I watched the interview this morning.
I wasn't as clear as I should have been. What I was intending to convey was that it's not up to me, as the campaign manager, to be ruling issues in or out. But actually, Jacinda had made it clear and subsequently made it clear.
Did you stuff up?
I wasn't as clear as I should have been.
Is that the same thing?
Jacinda had said that a referendum on the Māori seats is off the table as far as Labor's concerned.
And so that is the position.
The position.
Did you get a phone call, did you?
It has been, and it is the position.
Did you get a phone call from Jacinda saying, hey, Phil, you got it wrong?
No.
Okay, so what do you do now?
So, we have two scenarios, national-led one, a Labor-led one. And it's obvious, I think, to everybody that Winston Peters is in the box seat. And he's made it clear that I think he wants to take time. It's 2 weeks till the specials get counted. They will make an interesting difference to the discussions. So there are going to be conversations that are going to happen.
And we dial till then. We'll have to wait.
We have a caretaker government. I think one of the things in recent elections is that after all the intensity and the hurly-burly of the election campaign, the public wakes up the next day and realises that actually
Life
the
carries
country
on.
works pretty well even without
need a government?
even without a government. So I think we're pretty relaxed about that. But look, we are going to seriously do our best to put together a progressive, stable government based on Labour, the Greens and New Zealand First.
All right, be interesting to see how the negotiations go. Thank you very much for your time and for coming into the studio this morning. I do appreciate that. That's Phil Twyford, who's been the campaign manager for Labour. 8 minutes now.
A new Māori